Hello, how's everyone doing? Thank you for coming. This is Beyond Boolean, solving hard problems in feature flag architecture at scale. We've already heard a lot of presentations today that's been talking about this, and I think that I'm going to have a little bit different take, talking about some of the things that go along with getting thousands of feature flags. So I am Ryan Feigenbaum. That's me. This is me on Haleakala Summit, and I went up there specifically to plant that little feature flag in the background so I could come here and talk about feature flagging at scale. When we start feature flagging, it seems pretty simple. If a flag, do something. If it's false, don't do the other thing. But then, as we've heard already today, someone asks, all right, do it like this. Can we roll this out to 10% of users? Can we A/B test it? Can we target users in the UK who visited 3 times on a laptop, but only if there's 10% rollout and opted into beta and it's Tuesday? So the flag complexity gets very difficult very quickly, but there's other parts that make this difficult. Let's see if I can. All right, sorry about that. All right, the other problems though is that when you start, you might just have a team of 1 or 2 or 3, but then you get to hundreds of developers who are touching the code. Then you have the product team come in, then you have marketing, then you have sales. And so lots of different people are invested in the feature flags and using it, but then you also have your users, which get more and more complex, as well as your infrastructure. And so I call this the axes of scale, and it gets bigger and bigger as you scale up. And what you can see here is that that scale is not just linear, but geometric. So it gets harder when you feature flag at scale. What I'm going to propose are kind of 3 different ways to manage that scale. And these are all things that kind of come with that scale when you get bigger. So the first one is visible. How can you see what a flag is doing and understand why it's doing what it's doing? The second one is maintainable. How can your team manage you involve flags without chaos? And then the last one is performant. So how can you keep the system up and running when things get big? So our first section is visible. So visible, like I said, is about understanding what your flags are doing and why they're doing it. So one of the ways that we provide this at GrowthBook is to really kind of understand like what the flag is doing. So here's kind of what the complexity with a flag is, right? So you have, is it a kill switch that's on or off? Is there an account age? Is it region restricted? Is it user ID override? Is it a country? Great Britain. You have all these different attributes that are functioning, and you're trying to figure out, how's this flag going to evaluate? And then at the very end, maybe there's an A/B test. So it becomes difficult to understand, well, where's this going? So you kind of end up in the situation where you're trying to figure out how this feature flag is going to evaluate, even before you deploy it. And so one of the features that we have to do this is called simulations. And I like this feature because it reminds me of Neo in the Matrix, and it allows you kind of to dodge potential bugs because you get to see right away how a feature flag is going to evaluate. And this isn't something that that just GrowthBook does. Lots of places do this, lots of different providers, but it gives you a UI to understand how your features are going to be evaluated. And I'll show you that in a second. Part and parcel of this is the concept of archetypes. So you have certain users that you're targeting, and you maybe have like a pro users in the US, or an internal QA tester, an engaged power user. And so you want to test and see how a flag is going to evaluate for each of these different users. And archetypes are a way to kind of have that collection of attributes saved and allow you to test that right away. So let me kind of just show you, give you a sense of what this looks like. So this is the GrowthBook interface, and I'll come down to this complex feature. And we have here this Simulate tab, and you can see here that it allows you to see at a glance what this feature flag is going to evaluate as. So I have down here my complex user, which I had talked about, and we can see that for them, this feature flag is going to evaluate as true, and you get this knowledge kind of right off the bat quite easily, and it allows you to know that you set it up right. And the reason that I know, like, it seems like even that flag that I showed, so I can actually show you that right here. So here's the conditions for that flag that I showed in the previous slide with the account, age, and all that sort of stuff. It seemed like a pretty simple flag, but even when I was setting it up, I realized I set it up wrong, and I had to go back and redo it. So simulation, some kind of form of that where you can show your users what their flag is going to evaluate as, can be a really valuable way to prevent bugs, and it gives you some of that visibility. Nevertheless, of course, when you ship, you're gonna probably ship some bugs. We've heard about that today. So it's great if you can provide your users some way to debug when that flag ships, but it's causing some problems. So the way that we handled this at GrowthBook is we developed some dev tools, which is a Chrome or Firefox extension, and it allows you to look at your app and see all those flags that are available on the page. And I'll show you this really quick. So this is a coffee website. This is a demo site I just made for this purpose. But you can come up here and we have these dev tools right here. And so I can now see on this left-hand side all of the features that are available on the page. I can see which ones of these are have an experiment associated with them. I can go over to experiments even, and so I have my button color experiment here. I can actually toggle this on and off to see how the app responds to this. And so this is a great way to, like, if something's going wrong or you want to see how a flag is acting in your app, it provides a really nice kind of interface where not just developers can use this, but anyone on the team can go in and see how these flags are working. So this is another great part of visibility. The last part of visibility that I want to talk about is how to prevent cyclical flags. So you might have a personalized homepage feature that depends on product recs, and product recs depends on dynamic promos. Dynamic promos then relies on personalized homepage, and by doing that, you've introduced a cyclical flag, and depending on how your SDK handles this, you could be in an infinite loop, or something bad's probably going to happen. So the way that we check for this and prevent it in GrowthBook is by using a depth-first search algorithm. And so I have a simplified version of the code here, but basically we go through the flag. We have the flag, and then we have a map of all the flags with their dependencies. And we visit each of the paths of those dependencies one by one. And basically, if we come across on that path the same flag that we've already visited or seen, then we know that a cycle's been detected. And we show that to the user, let them know. This also allows us to not allow users to delete flags that depend on other flags. So if there's time, I could show a little bit more about this, but this is so we have this, you can check this out, but it's a cool way to make sure that you are not allowing cyclical flags and give visibility when a user is about to create one. And this, of course, becomes really important when you have lots of different people using different flags and setting flags as dependent on one another. So visibility, simulation and archetypes, dev tools, and cyclical dependency check. Next section is maintainability, and I'll just talk about this briefly. Graham's going to mention more about these sorts of topics afterwards, but we heard a lot about this, about how hard it is to keep track of your feature flags, especially when there was like 2,000, 1,000 of them. It's easy to create a feature flag. It's a lot harder to delete it. So how can you give people tools to make this easier? So the one way that we do this is by showing flags that are stale. So this lovely image is a Twinkie with a little feature flag in it. Twinkies might not know, but it has a reputation for being the dessert that never goes bad. It never goes stale. There's a funny kind of urban myth around this, but unlike Twinkies, flags do go stale. And so what we've developed is this heuristic in order to determine if a flag has gone stale. So if it's not been updated in 2 weeks, it has no active environments, it has one-sided rules, and basically that means it always returns true, it always returns the same value. This could also mean maybe it has no rules associated with it. It's not marked never stale by the user, it has no draft revisions, all rollout rules are 100% coverage, and it has no dependent features. So if all those things are true, then we mark the flag as stale and we give an indication to the user that this is something they should take a look at, because as it is right now, it's just accumulating tech debt. The next step, though, is that what if you find a stale flag? How do you remove it from the code base? So there's this concept here of code refs or code references. How can you show to your users where that flag lives in the code base? And so we have a version of this, but lots of providers offer this. And I'll show you kind of just what this looks like really quick, so you can kind of get a sense of it. So here on the feature, so this is that button color you saw earlier, we have this code refs. So this integrates with whatever your, like GitHub or GitLab, and it pulls in the code base and then shows you exactly which file the flags are being used in, which line of code, and then gives you a link to that on GitHub. So you can go in then and see where this is being used. Or also on the other side, if, for instance, like this complex feature one, it has no code references, so I know that this is actually not in the code anywhere, which can also be valuable to know. So even if you see what a flag is doing today, maintainability is what keeps the clarity alive tomorrow. And this is a referee eating Twinkies. Just all right, last section, I'm going to just talk about performance. And these are all things that infrastructure related, more or less, that we offer open source and available to our customers. The first one, title slide, I want to go fast. But you need some different things to do that. So the first one, of course, is just caching. Again, no one says that it's easy, but this is provided for in SDKs pretty easily. Building on that, though, then the next thing that we provide is a proxy, or kind of like a CDN, for feature flag evaluation. And so what this does is a couple different things that I've highlighted here. So the first one is horizontal scaling with Redis caching, which is pretty cool. So you can set up lots of these to speed up your feature flag evaluation dramatically. You can also then boost your security in a couple different ways, most importantly by allowing for very fast remote evaluations where the payload isn't exposed to the client. And then finally, you can do real-time updates, streaming, with server-sent events, as indicated here by Tom Hanks in You've Got Mail. So we have this proxy. It's available for our customers as a Docker container that you can use, and it makes it very easy to just kind of bring your feature flagging to another level without too much effort. Next, I want to talk about something that we've been doing a lot recently, and that's providing an Edge SDK for feature flagging. And this is available for all the major Edge providers, but it's also, you can kind of build your own. We give you the tools to do that as well. And it allows a lot of different things, but I want to really focus on one that's kind of interesting. And so this is a traditional client side flag or experiment setup. And so this is without the Edge. And the big thing that happens here is when you get that default state first in the app, and then the code runs and changes to whatever the kind of mutated state is, you're going to get some kind of visual flickering in the browser. And there's different ways to mitigate this, but especially when you're doing like a visual experiment, this is really bad. And just gives a bad experience. You also lose out on some event tracking and some other things. And to show you kind of a sense of what this looks like then is we have here, this is our home page where we're doing an A/B experiment on the size of our product card kind of there. And you can see that it starts off big and then it gets small. And this is, you know, a throttled connection, so it's kind of artificial. But when the user would come here, they would see this kind of jump or in content, which is not really a great experience. And this is where the edge comes in. So this is how our edge SDK works. We basically bring in, so the client there in the top left, or pings the edge. The edge fetches the page from the origin, and then instead of giving back, you know, the default kind of state of things, everything is rendered right on the edge, and the client then gets back the fully rendered page, so there's no visual flicker, and then there's a much better fidelity of data because the tracking can happen on the edge and not in the client. And what this means is that then, especially for A/B testing, for finding out which features are performing better, you're going to have much cleaner results. And in our testing, we found that when we used a browser-only client-side feature flagging, that to the time to variant was about 390 milliseconds. There was that flicker that I talked about. And when we switched to the edge, it was only 150 milliseconds. So it was about 2 to 3 times faster, which was pretty crazy. The final thing just wanted to talk about is that, so motivated to be compatible with open feature, we recently revised our Node SDK to follow the patterns with open feature. And actually doing that had an incredible benefit to the speed of our SDK, which was pretty cool. So our legacy kind of pattern was a per instantiation model. We moved to the multi-user context model that is compatible with open feature, and we found that it was about 10 times faster with 38% more requests per second and 28% lower latency. So that was pretty cool. It's a little bit different. So this is kind of if there's no cache. If cache comes in, it's not quite as big, but I don't know, I was pretty surprised by those results, which is pretty cool. So if you want to kind of build out, go fast, you need kind of a team to do it. You need the proxy, edge, code, all these different things that you can hit, but it does take a little bit of work and setup. So conclusion here, we began with a simple flag, but it quickly gets out of hand. And that's why these 3 things are really important. And I feel like they're things that are kind of like outside the main part of feature flagging. So giving your team visibility into what's happening with a feature flag and why. Giving tools for maintainability, like surfacing stale flags automatically, or showing where flags live in the code base. And then performance, caching, edge, proxy, the things that you expect, but providing these for your customers so they can do it easily. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Ryan. Any questions for him? It's an easy one.
What language do you have available in GrowthBook?
So my last counting, we support 22 languages. So is there one in particular you're looking for?
No.
Yeah, so we have a wide range of backend languages, client languages, and then like we have this whole Edge SDK too. Not all, so most of them, and we've been doing a lot of work recently to support open feature. just recently added support for Golang. Yeah, so we have an awesome SDK engineer who has been working really hard on all that stuff. But yeah, so we have them all listed in our docs. You can check it out.
And just to help, open feature help, or is helping the fact that the multi-language support is helping having the standardized.
Yes. Yeah.
Thank you.
Hey, so we already have open feature embedded in our systems, and we have a use case where we have air-gapped installations, and we want to export, let's say, predefined set of features, but still we want the features to be controlled by our product owners, and they need some UI. Do you have some air-gapped use cases covered with GrowthBook, or ability to export the feature flags into some standard that can be used and installed with, let's say, GitOps approach on these air-gapped installations?
Yeah, I don't know if I got. Sorry, it was kind of hard to hear the whole question, but yes. So we're totally self-hostable. You can be air-gapped, no problem. And then I'm not sure if I heard exactly what if there was other parts of it. Sorry.
So if you don't support air gaps, if there is an option to export open feature configuration that can be installed on the instance and just be living there without having to, let's say, press it up, export, install, forget for some time.
Yeah, I believe that should be possible. We're also very kind of committed to helping customers get what they need. So we could potentially build that out for you as well.
Okay, I think that's all. Thank you, and we'll be back in a couple minutes with the next talk.